Welcome to More Precious Than Rubies. I'm Ariana, and this season I'm doing walkthrough conversations with local women who are building meaningful work right here in San Diego County. Today I'm meeting Sienna Walters, founder of Companion Bread. Companion started during the pandemic and quickly became a hidden gem for people who love sourdough and for many who are sensitive to gluten. Sienna's role has evolved a lot as the business has grown, and she's now leading operations and administration. And she's built a production team to keep up with demand. Today, we're going to talk to her about the craft of baking and what it takes to grow business from starter to finish. Let's go meet Sienna. Sienna, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for having me in your bakery today. It's been so fun to get to know you a little bit before the episode and see the space that you're in. So thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
I've been so excited to learn more about you and the business that you built. So it would really help the audience if you could kind of explain what is the purpose behind the name of Companion Bread.
Yeah, so the name actually had a bit of an evolution. It didn't start as Companion. It was originally Knockout Bread when I first started, just as a fun project. And it had no meaning whatsoever. I liked the name, and I kind of ripped off a punk label, like an old punk label, Lookout Records, as the logo, and it kind of fit that. Then as the business grew, I wanted it to be a little bit less edgy, and a little more approachable for everybody that ate my bread, and that felt more authentic to me. And I really like this language podcast, and one of the episodes they were talking about the word companion and the etymology of it, and that in Latin it originally meant somebody you eat bread with or bread with, and I was like, boom, perfect, like
That's awesome.
that's the new name of the company. So that's how I came up with Companion. Totally changed up the logo. I was milling at the time, so I wanted an animal that kind of represented companionship and milling, and so I got a donkey, and that's kind of how we got to here.
Yeah, because when I think of donkeys, I think of when they used to carry the wheat on bags on their backs. So that's similar to what you had in mind as well.
They also pulled the millstone.
Okay.
Yeah. So donkey or an ox. So that was kind of between the two.
Sure.
But a donkey just felt more humble, and I feel like bread is the most humble thing that you could do for a living. It's been around for so long. It's just such a humble profession. So I thought that a donkey really fit that.
Yeah, and I think too the art of food also is very sacrificial. I mean, we're here at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing your time in the mornings to feed other families and provide bread for friends' parties and events and who knows what else.
Yeah, and honestly, beyond that, just what people eat every day.
Yeah.
To nourish them. It's such a simple thing. It's just flour, water, and salt, and it provides sustenance, and it has for so long.
Yeah.
Even back to biblical times. I'm personally not religious, but I can understand how important bread has been for people in so many facets.
Definitely.
Religiously, a way that they got paid, just for so many reasons. And so I just thought the donkey really fit that. Companion really fit that. And it's also subliminal. People don't really know that. And I like that part of it as well.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more later about the kind of sustenance side of it, and also kind of go into the science of bread and how you've tried to kind of craft a bread that's friendly for all people, even people with gluten intolerances. So I'm excited to get into that a little bit more. So thank you for kind of giving us the background on Companion. That's really interesting. So you started making your bread at home during COVID.
Right.
As you can see, everyone, we're not in her house right now. We're in a bakery space. So what pushed you to start selling bread from home during the pandemic, and what made your business successful so quickly?
COVID was kind of crazy for me, and I was the only person not furloughed from my job. So I was working really long hours, and I didn't really see the sunlight, and I was in a really toxic relationship, and I just wanted to fill my time with something that felt meaningful to me.
Yeah.
I got really into milling my own grains.
Okay.
And so the business kind of just started from there. And I actually wanted to start a mill. And I had friends buy my bread and really liked it. And as the pandemic stopped being so crazy for everybody and we were integrating back into society, a lot of restaurants were reaching out to me.
Really? That's cool.
And I was like freshly in this space. I was in 5 farmers markets and I was doing everything. I was doing all the baking. But at some point I was having a lot of panic attacks. And so this was just not supposed to be a real business. I quit my job and then farmers markets started reaching out to me. I was in 5 farmers markets. And then when the restaurants started reaching out, I was like, I have no capacity for that. That is crazy. And, I obviously can't sell it for full price. It has to be wholesale price.
Okay.
So I just said no to a lot of them. And then there's one restaurant in particular that was opening up, Bika. It's in Normal Heights. And they almost didn't take no for an answer.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they were very convincing. And they were like, you can do it. And we'll make sure that you can handle it. And I was coming in overnight, like,
oh my
all day. Like, I was sleeping here for a moment. And it was really hard. But then once I got used to it and that production level, I dropped out of some farmers markets to make time for that. And then I was able to hire help.
Okay.
And because I opened the door to them, I opened the door to anybody else who asked for wholesale, and now we're primarily wholesale. We only have 1 farmer's market.
Okay.
And I think that's really what made the business turn into a business. And I think because I worked in restaurants for my whole working life, it felt right to be selling to these restaurants that I know. Like, I know
it was familiar.
It was very familiar. I know some people in the industry, and so it's kind of fun. I don't deliver anymore, but when I do, it's fun to drop off to see, people that I know and friends. And it's also weird to be on that other side of the restaurant industry. I'm used to being in the kitchen, making the food and receiving the orders from outdoors and dropping off the orders. And so it feels very like well-rounded.
Yes.
So that's how it really took off.
And so for anyone who didn't believe me before saying that Sienna is working a sacrificial business, sleeping here is very sacrificial for the good of people to enjoy food.
Yeah. It's not just the feeding people, that's what's most important to me, but it's the art of what you do, I guess, and you get really into that.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think it's what I do is more of a craft, art, and you just want to perfect your craft, and you want to be so good at it that there's no excuses, and you're all in, tunnel vision.
So let's go into a little bit about the bread itself. So I was talking a little bit earlier about how a lot of your customers say that they can tolerate your bread when other bread doesn't work for them.
Right.
So do you have a reason for why that might be? Is there any science behind that?
There's definitely science behind it, but it's nothing super crazy or prolific. We only use 3 ingredients for our bread. Flour, water, salt. And that's how bread's been made for so long. Yeah. Recently, with all these additives to preserve it, it's that plus the fermentation. We ferment our dough for 24 hours before we bake it. And for a number of reasons, that just makes it a lot more digestible for people. And so if, anybody was eating not just my bread, but any bread that was fermented for a long time and uses clean ingredients, they generally can tolerate it better.
Interesting.
Obviously, people with celiac can't eat the bread. I think it's just the combination of the clean ingredients and the fermentation time. And it's easier on the gut. It's easier to digest. There's also the FODMAP sugars. The sugars in the flour that are hard for people to break down. I mean, a lot of the time it's not the gluten, it's that people have a hard time with. You can find local bakeries anywhere you live for the most part that are doing this. Sourdough bread is more acidic. Obviously, that's what makes it sour.
Yeah.
That preserves it. So natural preservative. You can leave our bread for a week or longer on the counter before it molds.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it's a bummer that, the bread industry has changed with the Industrial Revolution and making everything cleaner, faster, and more readily available to people, which I'm sure served its purpose, but, and it made everyone think that they were gluten intolerant.
Sure, that's a good point.
When it's not really the gluten.
Yours comes in different flavors, too.
It is simple. We only do pan loaves. My bread is 24-hour fermented dough,
Okay.
clean ingredients. It makes people feel good.
Yeah, that's great. So you were talking a little bit earlier, Sienna, about how you were baking professionally and you've now shifted from baking production to leading a team of people and kind of more admin roles. So what does that transition look like? Has it been difficult for you? Do you miss, I mean, you were telling me you fill in sometimes for your bakers when they need a day off, but what does that look like? Has it been difficult for you?
Yeah, I mean, physically, it's not difficult.
Yeah.
It's been nice on my body. But it was really hard to let go.
Okay.
And let go of control.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky that I have amazing bakers that have really been able to hold it up without me. We have Maddie here today. She works on Sundays. And then Letha works during the week. She is probably the best baker I've ever. Wow. And she's definitely better than I am. And I'm so lucky to have her because if it wasn't for her, there's no way that we'd be operational. So I think really it's been that, like the support system. Also, everyone I've hired, I am friends with through working, being in this community. However, they were my friends before they were my employees. And I feel very supported by them. At first, it was a hard transition. Now I've eased into it. And I think that it could really help in the future, like for the growth of the company, because I'm not in it day to day as much. I can look at it from the outside and an overview shot of what's going on.
Like you said, I'm sure it's really reassuring to you to have women on your team who are not only familiar with the industry, but also have the same passion as you do for the business that you've built and have been with you almost the whole time that you've even just built it from the ground up as well.
Definitely. Yeah, it's been great. And they also have their own, perspective. We start a bread of the week every week. And so they will come up with that and things that I would never think to come up with. And so it's fun to be collaborative.
Yes.
And I will say being a boss is weird. I've been hands off for 6 or 8 months now.
What has your experience been like as a woman scaling a small business to now hiring a team? Because so far the women that I've talked to who have built their own business, I think they also work with really small teams, which can be a good thing too for the amount of work that they need to put in, essentially.
Right.
But what have been the bumps in the road? Maybe what have been the joys that you've seen building that business?
I mean, we're really small, obviously, and so it almost feels like a house of cards.
Okay.
If one person, has an emergency,
Sure.
it can be really hard to hold it up.
Sure.
That's really on me, obviously. It's not on them, but it's just the point that we're at in business because, we don't have a big team, so we don't have a lot of backup.
Sure.
And I would say that's, been the most difficult or anxiety-inducing part.
Got it.
The company, and I think, obviously, if we grow, that'll change. We'll have multiple bakers that can fill in, multiple delivery drivers that can fill in. But for now, it's generally me that fills in. But because I have a job now that I'm also dedicated to, it's hard to take my time away from that. Other than that, I don't feel like there are too many pitfalls. It's been feeling pretty smooth.
That's
and
great.
I just have had to learn to just let go, don't overstress things.
Yeah.
And whatever happens. And almost try to set it up so that there are no fires, but deal with the fires
Of course.
when they come and not think about them before they do.
So Sienna, in your current job at Levin, this has kind of been, I think, shaping how you think about the science behind your bread. So in the fermentation process, the consistency and the scale at which you produce your bread.
Right.
Can you talk about how that's kind of inspired or educated the way that you do your business?
Definitely, yeah. So at Levin, we make instant sourdough. It's the yeast and bacteria from sourdough starter,
Okay.
but in the format of baker's yeast.
Okay.
So you don't have to maintain a sourdough starter. You just add it to flour, water, salt, you ferment, and you make sourdough bread. Yeah, and so
What everyone was doing during COVID or trying to, attempting to do.
They started aside. They have enough time to maintain them, and so this kind of eliminates that part of it. And as a sourdough baker, it was a little hard to want to work with them originally. Until I really understood what the product was, and I think it's really cool for so many reasons. There's the home baker that wants to make the bread, but doesn't have time to maintain a starter, or maybe didn't know how. And then also for, production scale, like me or even bigger, I would say, just makes things way more consistent.
Okay.
Which kind of goes into your question of, consistency, really understanding the fermentation more. I would say I've been more of like an intuitive baker my whole baking career. I really just pay attention to what the dough was doing and kind of like think about the temperature outside and the humidity.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but I never, took temperatures of the dough or like the pH of the dough to know how acidic it is. I've just looked at it, smelled it, which was good. I think I learned a lot that way, but in this setting, it's way more scientific. I have to do everything with, a log. I have to log everything and really pay attention to the temperature of everything, the air, the flour, the water, the time, and then also the pH. And I think I learned so much more and really had like a really good understanding. I mean, there's always so much to learn. I'm never going to fully understand it. I mean, it is still like wild fermentation, but so it's wild. But I think I've learned to fine tune it a little bit more and really know what's going on.
Sure.
And how to control it better. And so I've started implementing things like temperatures. Here, we don't do pH, but we should. It's a great way to know what's going on with your dough.
See, you're saying you're not a scientist, but you sound like a science girly to me with all the temperatures and logs that you're doing.
Well, I work for 2 scientists. It's just me and 2 scientists.
Wow.
In the lab all day. And so I guess I picked up on some of their jargon, but so there are days where they're talking amongst themselves and I have no idea what the heck is going on.
A lot of people say cooking is a science.
Yeah,
but I think it is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Baking is for sure a science.
Okay.
Definitely.
Sienna, you were talking a little bit about how you have previously milled your own grain. What did that look like?
Yeah, so originally I wanted to start a mill. I was really taken aback that the only flour really available to us here is, commodity flour that comes from the Midwest.
Yeah.
And you can find some pretty good flour that's, organic and all that. But we have so many small wheat farmers in California, but I could never find the flour here in San Diego. I figured, I would just start milling it. I'd find it and mill it. And how I would, reach out to the farmers, and the closest that they would take it down south, because they're, in like the Central Valley, and was LA. So I would drive to LA and pick up like 600 pounds at a time. And I started with the small table salt mill, and then I bought a 9-inch stone mill, which honestly is actually really small too. And I was milling for a year or 2, but then I couldn't handle the output. I just needed too much, and I wasn't milling for all of the flour. I was using 80% or 70% bread flour, and then milling like the 30% latte or 20% whole wheat. And yeah, it was great. I think it really added like an element of like unique. My mill couldn't handle the output, and eventually it just kind of broke.
Gosh.
It kept breaking, and there was a lot of repairs, and it got to the point where I just didn't have the time to pull it apart every day and make the repairs. And so it's evolved. Now we get, a whole wheat flour. Organic whole wheat flour that was a supplement. And it is a bummer that the point of the business has changed. However, it is a business, so I had to learn to adapt and not hold on so tight to something that maybe wasn't serving me anymore.
Sure.
And, I was still able to provide healthy, good bread for people.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the importance of sourcing whole ingredients, but also how difficult that can be for small businesses, because you're often the one doing all the work to produce that whole ingredient yourself, and flour is one of the main ingredients in your product. So it's not like something that won't matter if you just decide to get rid of it or change it.
Right.
Like, it's a main ingredient in your product.
I just knowing all these small farmers and people that are really interested in this, I have faith that here in San Diego we can have a better choice of flour.
Yeah. I think it's been interesting to see the shift in partnerships with local farmers and people who have to make a bigger process of something that is often more expensive and then is harder to wrap your mind around why it's expensive, but you see the reason why it's expensive. And I hope too that more people find the importance of working with small farmers because they make the world go round.
They do.
At the end of the day.
They do. And I think a big part of it too, back to the COVID story, is that, everything was flying off the shelves.
Yes.
And people couldn't get flour.
Okay.
They couldn't get, because everyone was in making sourdough. There's a store here, Home Ec store, and they had this flour share that you could be part of.
Okay.
And the owner of the Home Ec store was
Very
giving me
cool.
some flour, and that's really why I was like, this is crazy. Like, if we had farms closer here, wheat farms, then we would all have better access to flour
Yeah.
in times like this.
Yeah. I hope that expense and scarcity kind of become less of an issue because I think that's what we experienced definitely during COVID. But as times have moved on, I think it's been easier for people like you to access those ingredients. So
Right.
that's great to see that transition continue down the road. So this is a fun question. What have been your most popular flavors of bread and what has been your personal favorite flavor to create?
Okay. Our breads are really simple. We just make hand loaves in loaf pan because of the equipment that we have.
Okay.
We don't have a steam oven, so we don't make round bowls or batards or baguettes or anything that really requires steam.
Okay.
So we play around with the flavors, like you're saying. Instead of styles of bread, I would say that my personal favorite and possibly the most popular is the multigrain bread, which sounds boring, but it's the only bread that is the base dough is different than the rest.
Okay.
We add a porridge of multigrain
Oh.
and then add to the dough that gives it a really soft, moist
Yes.
texture. Yeah, it's the gelatinized starches really help preserve it for longer too. So it stays soft and moist longer. And that's the bread that I'm never sick of.
Okay.
And that people, when they try it, they're like, wow, this is good.
Well, I've never heard of adding porridge into bread. That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a good method to get that soft texture. Still sourdough. Everything we make is sourdough. We top it with sesame seeds.
Yum.
It's a great multi-purpose bread, but people all really like different breads. People go crazy with cheddar jalapeno, which is I mean,
I saw you had ube bread and I was like, oh my
People
gosh,
love
that would
ube.
be so
I
good.
love a cheddar one, and then we'll do random breads that are just like, oh, what do we do this week for the bread of the week? Let's just what do we have? And we'll throw in whatever, roasted garlic and herb, just anything, or some extra feta that we have. And
You can't mess up a sourdough loaf.
I
I mean,
know.
anything you add to it's only going to make it better.
definitely, and then I'll be random ones that I made that someone will be like, that was my favorite. Can you make that again? And I'll be like, yeah, sure. That's so funny because I just hit that one out of the air.
Sienna posts her weekly flavors every week on Instagram. So ube has definitely been one of the most interesting ones I've seen so far. So
it's a fun one.
how fun that you're creating all these flavors. So Sienna, what do you hope that Companion will become? I know that I'm sure, like all women, we have a 5-year plan, or we hope to have a 5-year plan where we can look down the road and say, this is my passion. This is what I want it to turn into. So what do you hope you see Companion become for other people, yourself, and what do you hope to kind of have stay the same as it grows?
I would love to obviously have a brick and mortar, but not necessarily, just a bakery, where we do pastries and bread. I'd love to have a cafe that really focuses on really unique breads and what we could do with the breads, sandwiches, I'm sure, and small plates. The concept itself changes a lot.
Okay.
It's kind of far out of reach, and so I'm not sure what it'll be if it happens, but I think I would love to be at a place where we can bring in a mill again and mill flour for at least a portion of the breads and always maintain the high quality and, those standards. I feel like my thing has always been bread. I'm known as the bread girl to all my friends. I like that because I'm not, I worked as a baker for a while now, doing different things, donuts, pastries, and everything in between, but bread is really what stuck. And so I'd love to have something that focused on bread more than pastry just because that's my interest.
Yeah.
And I think it would be something unique that maybe we don't have here.
Sure.
I feel like bread can be sort of an afterthought in bakeries sometimes. And pastry is usually like the shining star because it's exciting.
Right.
It's sweet and you can really do really fun things with pastry.
Yeah.
But I just love that you can take flour that is inedible and add water to it and manipulate it in these very minute ways, you know, just a little bit more water, a little bit more time, and you get a different product. And so I would love to just be able to explore that more.
You're proving that bread can still have different ways in which it's expressed, right?
Definitely.
Like you don't just have to eat plain sourdough. You can eat sourdough with garlic and herbs in it, or sweet sourdough. Definitely. Like there's different ways to do it.
Exactly.
So this is the last question, Sienna.
Okay.
So if someone is watching who loves sourdough as much as I do, honestly, what would you want them to know when they choose to buy from your business?
That's a great question. I think that I'm just always amazed still that people choose to buy our bread. I almost don't believe it. I'm just really grateful because there are so many great bakeries in San Diego and we are such a small one. Yeah. And people will tell me, yours is the best, your bread is the best. My favorite bread, I buy it every week. I go out of my way to buy it. And I just can't even believe it. I was like, really? Well, thank you so much. So I think that's ultimately what I would like to say is like, thank you to everyone that's been so supportive. And this really was not meant to be a business. It was like a side project to like keep my head above water. And so I'm just so surprised at what it's turned into. And I don't know what it's going to turn into, you know, because you never know where life's going to take you. Yeah. I think that even if I close tomorrow, which I don't plan to, but even if I did, I'm just like proud of what it's become and just grateful because obviously that came from so much support. I mean, I can't do this if people aren't buying. Yeah. And so I just am really grateful.
I think what I've gained from this conversation is that bread is a labor of love, and you obviously have that great love for the bread and the items that you're putting out, and people can sense that, right? I think it's beyond the product. It's like they see you as someone with a passion, and I'm grateful for people who continue to support small businesses because of the people that are behind that business. Definitely. And even though you've taken a step back and kind of gained more of an admin role and being a boss, you're still now able to see even more this trajectory that you've had your business on. And I hope for you, because I think it's hard for women to sometimes be able to recognize our own accomplishments. And that's something that I've understood from the other women I've talked to as well. Right. But that's my hope for you, is that as another woman standing outside and seeing and hearing your story, I see the work that you've put into it, and I appreciate you because you're a type of woman that I think other people look up to. And I hope that that is something that the listeners can gain as well, as like, even though there are challenges that come with a business, you can do it.
To the woman point, I really wanted to be anonymous in the beginning of this venture. I wanted it to be taken seriously and seen as a bakery that was just made good bread. Yeah. But when I started to be more, show myself more on social media and, you know, some articles came out, I actually got a lot more support, and not really just from women. It was from everybody. Right? I had men and women reaching out to work for me. Great. Or to, you know, interview me, or to, you know, give me praise. Yeah. And so I think that it's really your story. People want to know the face behind something and who is making their food, or whatever they're purchasing, and having this idea of like, as a woman, how I'll be perceived. And that wasn't necessarily true at all. And so I'm glad that I finally broke out of my shell and just was like, this is me, this is my bakery.
Well, your personality shines, Sienna. So I so appreciate you taking the time to have me here today in your beautiful bakery.
Thank you.
I hope for you that you're able to keep venturing towards your brick and mortar, because I believe in you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think that That would be really fun.
What I appreciate about Sienna's story is how she didn't get discouraged when she knew that her business needed to pivot, and even when things broke and things changed over time. And that's the part that I don't think people talk about enough, honestly, is that there's pivots that happen in businesses, and pivots don't necessarily mean failures. It's often proof that something's working and that you're brave enough to adapt instead of simply burning out and giving up. If you're in San Diego, I'll put Companion Bread's details in the description below. Go support Sienna and pay attention to the small businesses that make your neighborhood feel like home. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tune in next time as we continue to explore the lives of remarkable women. Until then, you are worth far more than rubies. Set about your work vigorously with arms strong for your tasks. Open your arms to the poor and extend your hands to the needy. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.